content producer because I have to keep my consciousness calibrated away from materialism and stimulus gratification. So my main points have been covered, and now it's back to service to others, where I can be summoned at any time to talk about hospice work, supernatural phenomenon that can be occurring due to Ascension timeline, and trying to find that 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 1,000,000 type of person that can engage in modern mystery teachings. Now, I probably will delete everything, eventually, but I will talk about these strange musical or instrument-based things that I've been doing that began with sound bowls, meditations, soothing synthesizer type things, and then it went to some woodwinds, which at times seem intense. This is done on purpose because the most important thing that you can do as a person who's trying to wake up to a wanderability or possibly becoming a modern esoteric researcher, mystery student, is to learn how to clear your mind waves. It's very important. Again, I'm using Betty Shine's term. I don't know if I think that's her term. Passed away in the early 2000s. And the visualization of clearing your mind waves is some of the most secret information that can be obtained within my clips that I've released over a period of about 1.5 years. There's secrets in there. I've covered all that. I don't like retreading ground. You can't retread ground just for content. Like, don't hit the like button, don't subscribe. This is serious spiritual work. You're allowed to go out in the public like this and do a little fishing, where I'm throwing out a line by making this AI thread, the modern esoteric practice thread, and the watch out for disclosure, fake disclosure culture thread. You're allowed to do that. Why are you allowed to do that? Because I'm a modern mystery teacher who has put himself through a modern variation of initiation. And if the consciousness grid was not tampered by the problem of evil, there would be areas all around town for natural, non-pharmacological, non-AI healing, where you would go and access the proper spirit particles through a healer. And everyone knew these places existed. That's why you're allowed to enter in the problem of evil and be careful what you say, because you have to be careful if there's a game you have to play and you say certain things, and maybe, I don't know the math, again, 1 out of 1,000, it could be 1 out of 1,000,000, will understand what you're saying, and understand what you're saying on a whole other level. So in those videos that I made, there are secrets, and the topic of this one today is those instruments. What's he doing with those saxophones? That sounds a little intense. Well, to fully understand jazz music, you can either stay in the kiddie pool, or you go all the way and you embrace experimental jazz and free jazz, and you have to understand something like Ascension. Use that for an example. John Coltrane's work, Ascension. Or Ornette Coleman's free jazz. Those 2 great examples. Shape of jazz to come. Things like that. And understand that that's a discipline, and they're on another level. There's the guys that began that and made those signature albums could play music, and play music in Coltrane's case at a prodigy level, do certain things over at a prodigy level, and they chose to make this music that was abrasive. Someone like Pharoah Sanders using like animal noises on the reed, those guys all in that circle. And it's important to understand that Coltrane at that time, when he was making Ascension, was headed towards a spiritual path where the sounds was no longer about trying to swing. For him, his calling was to formulate sounds from a horn, and those sounds, when they, with the intensity, let's say late period Coltrane, so even a little further than Ascension, a little even further, into something like Meditations, you have to understand what's going on there. And Coltrane was using a way of clearing his mind waves through an intense form of this breathing process that happens when you're playing woodwind instruments, reed-based instruments, where there's a piece of wood there, saxophones, clarinets, things like that. And those clips that I make, where there's just one person standing there, just me standing blowing in the horn, is a motivation. And I'm offering all these ways where you can meditate other than something that, basically I'm just saying there's many ways to meditate. And you mix them up. Again, this is if you have to live in a city, and you're not lucky enough to be able to live out in like some completely secluded area, and you mix it up, you know. And so it's also important to realize that there still are instruments that AI will never be able to duplicate, and even if it does, it just won't be interesting. It's always interesting hearing something that's created by the breath of a person. There's a particular significance to a breath. It doesn't matter if it's swinging or if it's late period Coltraneing, you know, or Pharoah Sandering, high blowing, low blowing, things like that on the reed. These are sounds, and you have to be mature, especially if you're studying jazz or if you're a jazz musician, to not look the other direction and disregard when it's time to become heavyweight. And I'm not saying that heady, intricate jazz is the kiddie pool. I'm just saying you have to be able to understand that they're all just sounds, different things that you're doing with horns, stringed instruments. I'm talking about jazz specifically here. And so it's important to still be able to see one person standing, playing an instrument, bad audio, and you use your imagination. I went a little extreme with the tenor ones, where I was using reeds and too much echo. I really haven't even played one yet where I'm actually playing the tenor, or maybe there's one on there where I actually have my sound. But and to understand all the different ways you can hear just one person freestyling what comes to them, because we understand that a lot of times that's coming from another dimension. You know, many artists will tell you that. They don't even know how they did something. How did I write that song? How did I create this sculpture? So that's a little explanation for those horn videos. Horn, saxophones, clarinets.